Alrighty. All right, what's going on, everybody? Eric here, and we have a very, very special guest, Bryan Casella, BC. What's going on, Bryan?
What's up, Eric? Thanks for having me, dude. Happy to
No
see you
problem,
doing
man.
this.
Thanks for coming on.
Of
So
course.
to start off, I kind of want to talk about your professional basketball career. So where did you actually play basketball for those who don't know?
So I played in high school, varsity. Then from there, I ended up going to 1 year, a junior college here in LA called East LA. And then from there, I got a scholarship to go to the University of San Francisco, USF, where I finished my career, my collegiate career, which is a Division I school. That's where if people remember the legend Bill Russell. He
Mm,
played there, like 50, 60 years ago.
okay.
And from there, I ended up going to Spain, and I played a couple years in Spain. And I stopped playing because of my injuries. I got 2 ankle surgeries in a 3 year span. And after the second one, it was just really difficult for me mentally to get back in that aggressive mode. I was so hesitant, playing. I wasn't as aggressive. I was scared to get hurt. So really, from a mindset standpoint, it kind of ruined me, and that's why I stopped playing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
And what position did you play? I personally see you as a shooting guard or maybe a power forward. What'd you play?
point.
Point? Oh, really?
Yeah,
Were you a
yeah.
shooter or were you more of a drive? Did you more drive?
I did play a little bit of shooting guard because I was more of a scorer, but
Hmm.
I'm not that tall, man. I'm like 6'2", maybe 6'3" with shoes on if I'm lucky.
Hmm.
So, when you get to the professional ranks and even in college, you're already one of the shortest guys. Every team I was on past college, I was always the shortest guy or second to shortest guy. So
Really?
I had
I
really had no choice but to play point. I was very fast and I was really athletic. So that made up for my lack of height, we can say. But in most cases, I was a captain. Probably virtually every team I was on, I was the captain. And then, point guard, I played 80% of the time.
Okay. So
Yeah.
were you primarily a shooter, like a spot? I personally I see you as kind of a spot up shooter, and then I see
Yeah.
you kind of getting those aggressive buckets to the basket.
Yeah.
Really driving into the paint. That's what kind of player I see you as. But
Yeah.
what was your main score? How was your plan of scoring go, or basically how did
Yeah.
you score your points?
It evolved. In the beginning, I was very raw. I just had a lot of speed and athletic ability. So I would get to the rim pretty easily, especially in high school. Like nobody could stop me. But in high school, I had no mid-range jumper. So I was either shooting a
Mhm.
three or I was getting all the way to the rim and either dunking or getting fouled and going to the free throw line. In
Okay.
college, I started to develop because in college they're a little bit better with defense. If you're a standout player, they'll adjust the defense and maybe run like a box and one and have a guy like in your face the whole time.
Hmm.
So that's when I really started developing my jump shot. But I overall was definitely more of like a street one-on-one player.
Okay.
So it was very difficult for people one-on-one to stop me. So I was very just, I would drive and create opportunities for other people or score for myself. So I was very just like an all-around scorer, I would say, by the time I stopped playing. Um, but I was just, what made me good, dude, was I was fearless and I was super aggressive.
Hmm.
Like I would just drive in and like I would try to dunk on everybody. And if I got fouled, I got fouled. If I made the dunk, cool. If I missed. So it was just a lot. Sometimes people that knew me, once we played teams that knew me, if I got a full steam, like running, they would just get out of my way because like
Hmm.
I didn't care. And I was a big kid. I was 6'2", but I was like 200 pounds. I was solid. So if I got in the air, pretty much anybody I hit would just bounce off me.
Right.
But that was my thing, was just speed and just explosion, and that jump shot came later, I would say.
Hmm. Okay. So how often do you still play basketball? Is that still part of something that you do, or have you kind of laid off from playing basketball?
Well, when I stopped playing, man, I was so kind of upset because I felt the injuries weren't fair, if that makes sense, right? I
Yeah.
feel like I got my dream taken away from me, so I was pretty upset about it. I didn't watch basketball. I didn't talk about it. I didn't play probably for a couple of years,
Mm.
and I started playing again recently a little bit, and I'm slowly getting back into it. But more than anything right now, to really stay in shape, I'm still doing some training with one of my trainers that's like athletic focused, but I'm doing a lot of boxing. That's
Okay.
kind of my
Yeah.
thing right now to stay in shape.
Yeah. I definitely see that on a lot of your social media. You're talking a lot about boxing. So
Yeah.
when while you were playing basketball, were you meditating as well, or did your evolution of your mindset kind of happen after you kind of got you left the league, and right as you said that depression hit and you
Yeah.
you for you said that you were feeling sorry for yourself. Did it
Mhm.
come during that or while you were playing?
After, man,
After.
I didn't pay attention to any of that stuff. Again, the world wasn't what it is now. You guys have so much more access to social media than I did, because you're
Right.
really young. When I was your age, all I cared about was basketball and girls. That's it. Like I didn't read. I didn't, I played way too much video games. I wasn't as mature as you are. So that mindset, inner work, self-development, meditation, that kind of stuff, that didn't start until I was probably 26, 27 years old, and I'm 34 now. So it's only been a couple years. I wish I would have started it when I was your age. Then I probably would have even been a better basketball player for sure.
Okay, yeah. Hey, so let's shift the topic over to real estate. So all right, so when you first got into real estate, I know that you mentioned that you had somebody tell you all you had to do was actually put the work in and
Mm-hmm.
prospect.
Yeah.
For that, I mean, and kind of going for that, when you were just putting in all that work, I mean, I've already experienced it and I'm not even in real estate. My mom literally just yesterday said you're gonna wear yourself out. You're doing schooling and everything every single day. You're gonna wear yourself out. And like you said, I took that as kind of a compliment, and
Yeah.
instead of dampering me, it made me want to go harder because I realized that,
Yeah.
okay, this is actually happening. This is
Yeah.
a sign of success that Brian mentioned.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
did you have experiences with people actually telling you to kind of pipe down your action, even in basketball? Did you have people trying to tell you you're
Mhm.
working too hard or you're gonna tuck
Yeah.
yourself out or anything like that?
I got both ends of it, man. In real estate and in basketball, I got you're not good enough, you're wasting
Mhm.
your time, and then I got you're doing too much. All that work is not worth it. Same thing in real estate, man. So I heard both ends of the spectrum. Either I'm not going to make it because I'm in quotes not good enough, and all that extra work I'm doing is just a waste of time. So and that's why I've always told people, the opinions of other people, take them, as a grain of salt, because
Right.
they're always coming from people who never have experienced what they're talking to you about.
Mhm.
Like I've never heard what you just said, like you're going to wear yourself out. I've never had a top business person say that to me or
Right.
ever say it in a book that I read or a video that I studied. Because to me, what does that mean? You're going to wear yourself out. Like show me the example of somebody who worked so hard that they like died or they wore themselves out. You don't
Right.
see it, and I've never gotten advice or criticism like that from somebody who's successful. And like I
Mhm.
say, you want to get the advice from people who have actually done it. If they
Exactly.
tell you, then maybe you can pay attention to it. But again, the people around us, like maybe your family, my family, all the people around me, they never took basketball to a very high level or any sport or started their own business and took it to where I've taken my business now.
Mhm.
So how could I take their advice if they have no idea what world I'm in? It just doesn't make sense. It would be as if you were, I don't know, an elf and you want to take advice from a dwarf. You're two different people. Like
Yeah.
a dwarf isn't going to tell you how to be a better elf. It just wouldn't make sense, right?
I
Yeah.
like that comparison. I don't think
Yeah.
I've ever heard that one before.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so when you were kind of first starting out, what was the best advice that you got when you were just getting into real estate?
The best advice I got was, your emotions are going to be up and down. Things are probably not going to work out like you plan, like all the deals that you want and in the time that you want. The number one thing you need to focus on, regardless of how you feel or what's happening, is you need to stay consistent and show up every single day and do the job that you said you were going to do. And as simple as that sounds, man, it is the most important thing because that's the only thing that you can control. I can't control if the first call or the 10,000th call is going to be an appointment that gets me that listing. I can't control that if I wake up one morning, I don't feel good, right?
Mhm.
Maybe I'm a little bit sick. Maybe I'm feeling a little bit tired, but I can control what time I wake up, showing up to the office every day and doing my work and what I committed to.
Right.
And when I look back, there were so many things going on in my mind and, in my environment and the people around me. But what kept me going, man, and what ultimately allowed me to start building momentum and being successful was just the fact that no matter what, I showed up every day. I mean, there'd be days, dude, where I'd just be like in tears because, things weren't working out and my emotions were all over the place. But I said, even if I have to wipe the tears off my face, I'm still going to show up to work because this is what I need to do to be successful. If I stop this, then I have no chance. But as long as I'm in the game and I'm working and being consistent, I have a chance and I'm going to see success.
Right.
However, if I step out and I'm in my emotions and I'm complaining and I'm not working, then I have zero chance. And that's the best piece of advice I got from all the veterans, because they told me it's going to be bad. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be obstacles. You're going to feel like quitting, but that's what separates the people who make it from who don't. Is
Hmm.
when you feel like quitting, a lot of people are going to quit. 9 out of 10 are going to quit. But if you
Right.
keep going, you'll make it to the other side, because all that
Right.
suffering and obstacles and challenges, that's temporary. It's not
Mhm.
permanent.
Yeah, and what you're saying, it kind of correlates with Napoleon Hill's book Think and Grow Rich. At the beginning of the book, he mentioned
Mhm.
how there is this person who bought all this mining equipment, and after seeing a little bit of gold, they stopped. They were in a drought for a long
Mhm.
time, and then they gave up and sold their equipment. But and the guy who they sold it to went to their dig site and kept on digging, and literally 3 feet from where they stopped, there was one of the biggest gold veins in
Yep.
history, and it was worth like, I think, like 6 million back in that time, which is a lot of money today. That's a ridiculous amount of money. So it's kind of the same thing with that of, I've kind of been keeping that in my head for, even when I do get into prospecting, it's going to be, if it's not this call, it's the next one. If it's not that
Yeah.
one, then it's the next one.
Mhm.
I don't want to be the person who stopped 3 feet before goal. That's not
Yeah.
that's not the type of person I want to be. So
Absolutely.
right, yeah. So I know that you mentioned that you did consider quitting. What
Mhm.
kind of what did you tell yourself that I know you mentioned you wanted to prove everybody wrong. Was there anything
Yeah.
else that kept you from not wanting to quit besides just wanting to prove people wrong?
I'm not a quitter, man. Up until that point, I had never quit anything, right? Whether it was a race, whether it was, something, an activity I did as a kid, like rollerblading, or, dares, whatever I did as a kid, whatever I did in basketball, I had never quit. So I was like, I'm not going to start now. I'm a
Mhm.
grown man now, in my 20s, I'm doing real estate. And so that was part of it. But the main thing was, I would think, okay, let's say I did quit. Let's say I did quit. What am I going to do? Right? Like,
Right.
what am I going to do? Let's put aside proving people wrong, right? Because that one was probably the biggest one. I said, what am I going to do? My only other option would be to work like a 9 to 5 or get a regular job, which I
Mhm.
swore all my life I would never get. So I really said, this is my only option. I chose this. And that's really the point I want to make with you, man, is let's say we feel like quitting. We chose to do real estate.
Right.
So why would you quit? You made the
Exactly.
decision. I didn't force you. You didn't force me to get in it.
Mhm.
Why would you even entertain the thought of quitting? Now I get it. Emotions run high. You're not
Mhm.
getting the results, right? Maybe money's short, you're feeling the stress. But why would you quit when you put yourself in that position and you said, I'm going to do blank real estate? And the more I thought about it like that, man, I was like, how ridiculous for me to even think about quitting. It's illogical. So why
Right.
would I do it? So I said, okay, I just need to focus on making it through today, tomorrow, the next day, the next day. Let's keep the focus short. Let's get those small wins and let's build that momentum. And that's
Mhm.
just where I took it from, man.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've also made that promise to myself that I am not personally willing to work that 9 to 5 job. I've already instead I was looking at colleges this year. I went to multiple colleges this year, but then I started looking into, well, what would I do if I did decide to go to college? I would end up working a 9 to 5 job. I decided,
Mhm.
so literally all I'm going to be doing here is wasting time and money just to party and go to a school with my friends. It's completely
Yep.
pointless. And exactly what
Mhm.
you were saying, literally on my wall in front of me, I have a picture that says a quitter never wins and a winner never quits. And that's
Yep.
that's exactly what I've been that's what exactly what you have to keep in mind is, do you want to be recognized as somebody who quits and gives up, or do you want to be the
Yeah.
person who perseveres and keeps on going and keeps going through the motions and does everything, kind of works through it. So yeah, I completely agree with everything that you just stated, 100%. And so earlier today, I interviewed my it was actually my dad. He used to play in a band and everything, and
Mhm.
he the person who he played with. He now owns two Remaxes, and I had the opportunity of interviewing him today.
Nice.
He basically, when I first got in, right as we entered in the Zoom meeting, he asked me, he was like, what do you think real estate is? And I told him, well, the act of real estate is bringing two people together and being the middleman in the transaction. He goes, well, how are you going to do that? I told him, you're going to have to actively prospect, door knock, cold call, everything. He said, all right, you've got the right mindset. You know what you're doing. So
Yeah.
that also reinsured that I'm doing the right thing here.
Yep.
And
100%.
yeah, I completely agree with everything you said, 100%. So if you were, let's suppose that, I'm sorry. Okay. So if you could tell your 18-year-old self something, what would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Start reading and start working on your mind, man.
Mm,
It's so, we're told with age comes wisdom. I don't believe that, right? I think, wisdom and knowledge has to be earned by the individual. And, had I known 1/10 of the stuff that I know now, when I was your age or 18 or 20 or even 25, I would be much farther ahead than I am now. And I would have done better in everything I did back then. So I really would have told myself, start working on yourself,
right.
get your mind right, start
Mhm.
picking up some books, start reading, start creating some rituals, and really start working on yourself, because the payoff of that long term is priceless. So that would probably be the smallest little piece of advice I would give myself that I think would have the most effect.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I mean, before I started watching you on YouTube, which was only recently, I think about 3 or 4 months ago, something like that, I knew I wanted to do real estate, but I had no idea what the process was. And then I
Mm.
started watching you, and I was like, this guy's onto something here. He knows what he's
Yeah.
talking about. And
Yeah.
everything that you said, I immediately implemented it with no question. I started
Cool.
I had stigmas around meditation. I was like, oh, the hippie stuff? No way. But I mean, after hearing it from a lot of successful people like yourself, I was like, maybe I should give this whole thing a shot. Maybe I should try it. And with reading, prior to the books that I just started reading, I haven't read since the 6th grade. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a big book reader, but with you saying that was one of the things that you wish that you did, it just reinsures that what I'm doing is completely worth it. And I've been getting onto a schedule just like you suggested. I'm taking literally everything that you teach. I'm taking it and running with it. That's my plan for right now.
Awesome, man. Yeah. And like I tell people, if you just even my free YouTube stuff, if you implement a lot of that, you can make huge growth in anything. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of doing it and putting it into practice. Because a lot of people, what they do, unlike you, is they just watch it and they feel good. But you're one of the few who's actually implementing it. And that's why you're making changes, man. And you're doing better because you're taking the information and applying it. That's why we do it. I
Right.
don't speak to listen to myself or to make you feel good. I speak so you can take something and learn and improve upon it, because that's how we're supposed to, carry the torch. We're supposed to
Mhm.
get better from generation to generation. And
Right.
that's how we do it. We hand down what we learn to your generation, then you improve upon it, then you hand it down to the next generation, and so on and so forth. But it requires for us to be practitioners and actually use it.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, just off of I'm reading this book, The Compound Effect, that I also got from your recommendation. I mean,
Nice.
I was from just I didn't even realize that I was implementing the compound effect, but just off of that,
Yeah.
I made simple, slight, very slight changes to where, okay, I'm gonna read an hour a day. This is during
Yeah.
quarantine where all I have is time. Literally, I have an
Yeah.
abundance of time to where I just
Yeah.
decided, okay, an hour a day I'm gonna read. And then on maybe after a week of doing that, I was like, all right, now I'm gonna start meditating. And then
Yeah.
everything just started growing on top of that. And
Mhm.
that's it's I'm I feel great about myself. I mean, I started working out again. I mean, it's just everything. It's a lot of positive changes that are happening, and that's implementing that technique has definitely helped. So, is there a time where you can specifically recall the effects of the compound effect in your own life?
I think it's one of those things that suddenly it just dawns on you, right? That
Mhm.
thing builds over time. But there was many times, man, like with boxing, probably about 7-8 months into boxing, it kind of clicked. I was like, wow, like I'm pretty damn good now. Basketball, same thing. Within a couple months of picking up a basketball when I was a kid, I distinctly remember, having made huge progress. When I stopped and actually analyzed it, I was like, wow, man, I've done a lot in only a couple months. Same thing in my real estate career. After about a year and a half, I stopped for a second and said, whoa, I have, like 6 pending transactions right now. I'm on pace to do 250, 300,000 in commission, and I'm still pretty new in the business. Like, this is cool. but it
Right.
required me to stop and look at it to realize that the effect was happening. Because when you're in it, you're not paying attention to that, right? You're just doing what you're supposed to do. And that's like a big snowball that builds. But
Hmm.
until you stop and take a step back and see how big the snowball is, you don't notice it, you know?
Right.
So
Exactly.
it's just one of those things that it kind of clicks
Right.
in anything that you do after you've been consistent with it. And it's cool because when you recognize that, it confirms everything you've done. And
Hmm.
then now you really start making even more progress because you see, whoa, that's where the starting line was. I'm pretty far now.
Right. And then
Yeah.
you have a belief in it now. You
Yeah.
it's confirmed in your mind, and then you're not questioning it anymore. I completely agree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, how big of a role did I'm sorry. What was I All right, what was the main contributor to your success, do you feel?
Main contributor, I would say, man, there's so many. But probably the biggest one is that you can't stop me.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like, you can't stop me. So what I love about reading a lot of the older books, I've read a lot of stuff on, old conquerors and warriors. And that's something I saw in common with a lot of them, regardless of where they were from or what their style was or what era they lived in or what, time in history. That was their mental attitude. It's like, you cannot stop me, right?
right.
Another, a great, we can say, example of that too, that I can think of that people maybe have seen in movies or that I would recommend that they watch is Brad Pitt playing Achilles in Troy, the movie Troy,
Haven't seen
and yeah, and Gerard Butler playing Leonidas in 300. Right?
that
They
one.
have that among many other things. They have that. They're like, we're unstoppable.
Right.
Me, my army, just me in general. You cannot stop me. If I want to do something, it's going to be done. And when you have that, then the possibility of failure or stopping or quitting or any of that stuff we've been talking about, it's not even in your mind. You're just
Right.
like this bullet train that goes after what you want. And once you commit, you go.
Mhm.
I would say that's the biggest thing because the rest of it, I know it'll take care of itself. If I need to learn a new skill, no problem. If I need to make an adjustment, no problem. Oh, coronavirus, no problem. Oh,
Exactly.
I need to hire people now and manage people now, no problem. Oh, I need to be a leader now, no problem. Right? Oh, I need to
Mhm.
learn a new language, no problem. Oh, I need to change this and start doing video, no problem. Right? So anything that comes, you attack it and you just go with it instead of
Mhm.
what most people do, which is like question it or like, oh, that's not fair. Coronavirus. What do
Yeah.
you mean? I was just doing a lot of deals. This isn't fair. I'm not even worried about that. By the time they realize what's going on, I'm already a mile ahead of them because I kept going. So
Right.
it's that, man. It's that mentality of you can't stop me.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's one of the things that me and you have in common is we have that killer instinct, so to say, to
Hmm.
where
Yeah.
if we say we're going to do something, we go and do it.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's not a matter of why, it's when, or not a
Yeah.
matter if any, it's a matter of when it's going to happen.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
yeah. So, do you ever get overwhelmed with all the projects that you're doing, or does that just come down to once you have a management and a system for everything, then the feeling of overwhelm kind of goes away?
Maybe a little bit in the beginning, I dealt with that, man. But I think once you learn to relax and not resist everything so much, and what I think plays into that, because obviously overwhelm is an emotion, it's a state that people put themselves into. They let their mind go crazy. Oh my god, I need to do this and that, and then I still have to do this, and it becomes this thing. Now whether I look at it from that perspective and overwhelm myself, or I stay calm, whatever we had to do, we still have to do. So the
Right.
way I see it is, all I did was get a little bit more emotional intelligence and maturity that
Hmm.
allowed me to assess the situation from more of a position of being calm and saying, hey, I have 10 things to do. All right, let's do it one at a time. Let's go. Versus the other person who's like, oh my God, 10 things. I don't have enough time. And
Right.
they go crazy. So with
Right.
me, it's just having more control of your mind and your thought process,
Hmm.
because where your mind and your thoughts go, it's going to breed the emotion in you. And a lot of people fail to make that connection.
Yeah.
People have become so unconscious in how they live, they don't realize that they're daydreaming and all these pictures and thoughts are coming up. And that's what's causing them to create those emotions in their body. That's the
Yeah.
conductor. Thoughts, if people didn't know and they're listening, thoughts are an electrical current. And that goes through your body. And that's what causes your spikes in emotions. The body is what, 72% water? So that conductor going through a 72% water body here is going to create a change. It's going
Hmm.
to create a state. So if I know that if I think empowering thoughts, positive thoughts, good thoughts, I'm going to create good emotion.
Right.
Versus if I focus and create bad ones, I'm going to create bad emotions. And another thing people don't get is when you constantly create bad thoughts, bad images, bad emotions, you don't feel good. You put your body in a state of acidity, which means you can get sick more, you can breed disease. So it literally kills you. So how you think can literally save you or kill you if you
Right.
break it down from a scientific level. And once I learned that, man, I was like, whoa, I really need to pay attention to my mind because it's literally a matter of life or death.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, I think that's called hypochondria, if I'm not mistaken. It's an illness of the mind is so powerful to where if you, I think it was on Dr. Oz or something. This lady, she thought herself into being pregnant. She was not pregnant whatsoever, but she had faith in that. She
Mm-hmm.
completely believed with her whole heart that she was pregnant, and she developed a baby bump. It was
Mm-hmm. Yep.
ridiculous. That's just
Mm-hmm.
it shows the power of the not even the conscious mind but the subconscious mind on that. I mean, that's something that I've learned from you also is, and as well as the book Think and Grow Rich, is to influence your subconscious mind. That's where I think the true growth is going to happen, to where
Yes.
everything that you're feeding your mind is going to be positive. I mean, I know personally, whenever I have a thought that's like, man, I don't want to do that, I instantly stop that thought right there, and I instantly
Yep.
try to think of the positives. It was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna work really hard. I'm gonna get this result
Mm-hmm.
from such, and I'm gonna achieve my goals, and I'm gonna get exactly where I want to go. So I guess my next question for you would be is how did you? I know that you probably have control a lot of your you control a lot of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
When did you actually start the process of gaining control over your mind?
When I started this journey, man, probably 20, age 27-ish. And it was tough, man, because I was also kind of a negative Nancy, like they call it, right? I was always looking for, what was missing. I always saw what was wrong. I was too hard on myself. And it doesn't feel good when you do that. Yet
Mhm.
before that moment, I didn't think I could control that, right? Because what
Yeah.
do we hear from people? Oh, well, that just runs in your family. Oh, that's just how life is. No, it's bullshit. That's not how it is. You have control. And I believe if you're an adult, it's your responsibility to fix things about yourself that you don't like, especially from a mental standpoint. So, you start reading books by gentlemen like Anthony Robbins, and you've read Think and Grow Rich that
Mhm.
covers a little bit about the mind, and you start seeing how simple it is to start controlling this mechanism, right? I think the first point is people believe that they're not in control of their mind. You are in control of this.
Right.
You just have not exercised control over it for so long that it's going crazy. You need to,
Right.
get it back on the leash and say, hey, come over here. You're
Yeah.
mine. I'm
Exactly.
in control of you, not vice versa.
Mhm.
And that's where it starts, realizing, hey, I can control this thing. And then you start doing small things and small habits. Like, I started doing affirmations, right? I'm sure you've heard of that. Doing
I haven't heard of affirmations. What's that?
Okay, cool. So basically an affirmation would be I state something in the
Oh,
present
yeah,
about
yeah. Okay.
myself, like I am confident, right? And I say it every
Mhm.
day. I am confident. I
Yeah.
am confident, because you're feeding your subconscious mind
Yeah.
doing that, right? You're
Okay.
reprogramming your mind. I have affirmations, which is one way to start consciously doing it. Another one would be visualization, and actually
Mhm.
using your imagination to picture scenarios and things that you want. In the morning, I would picture, okay, this is how my day is going to be, right? If I have an appointment that day, this is how that appointment's going to go. It's going to go well. They're going to say yes. So I start taking control of my mind actively. That's the word. You have to actively do these things. And that's how you start building this muscle to then be able to just do it on command and make that your autopilot.
Mhm.
It's flipped for people. Their autopilot or subconscious normal pattern is for the mind to be crazy. If I start doing these exercises as habits over and over and over, eventually my automatic mode is I'm in control versus
Mhm.
I'm not in control.
Yeah.
And these processes can be flipped through time, through practice, and through repetition. It's just
Mhm.
you have to be patient, and it has to be important to you. Because I tell people, if somebody's listening and they're 25, you've been doing the opposite of what I'm saying for 25 years. So you're not going to change overnight. It might
Right.
take you a couple months, might take you a year, but hell, if I told you in 2 years you can change the rest of your life, would that not be worth it? Of course it would. You just have to commit to doing these small daily tasks every day.
Exactly. Yeah, I completely agree with the visualization thing. Me personally, I've been dreaming or I've been visualizing my Model 3 Performance Tesla. I just spend every it's such a nice car. But
Nice.
I've been visualizing just me holding the steering wheel, going 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds.
Nice.
Just imagining the autopilot, hearing the sounds, hearing
Hmm.
everything. I've been
Yeah.
really trying to implement that into one of the things that I do on a daily basis, is visualize what I want. And because as you said, the more you visualize something, the more real it becomes
Mhm.
to you, and the more
Yep.
achievable it seems. And
Mhm.
even to go off of to say, when you were talking about your subconscious mind, I mean, it was junior year, and at the end of sophomore year, through most of my junior year, I suffered from it was a self-inflicted mental disease called depersonalization.
Mhm.
Basically, I felt like, I don't know if you've heard about it, but you feel like you're out of your body. Basically,
Mhm.
I would have a lot of panic attacks. I had extreme
Yeah.
anxiety. My heart rate was always
Yeah.
extremely high, because my fear, I feared it more than anything, is I thought I was going to be schizophrenic. That was my biggest fear in the world. It scared me
Yeah.
to death, because I mean, it got to the point where I was literally watching YouTube videos on how to diagnose yourself from schizophrenia. And right as I got those diagnoses, right as I heard the things, I would start seeing things in the corner of my eye. Like, I literally was making myself
Yeah.
go crazy. Like, literally,
Yeah.
that's when I realized I had to make a change.
Mhm.
I had to do something. I had to change
Mhm.
my thought pattern. I had to change something in my life. So definitely, I completely agree. I mean, it all started with kind of gaining control of your thoughts again. I mean,
Yeah.
that's literally it was a journey. Don't get me wrong. It was definitely a journey. It was a huge process. It took a lot of mental effort. I mean, I literally asked
Mhm.
I was like, Mom, take me to the mental hospital right now. I'm going insane. Like, I'm this is I thought I was going
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy. It was so it was I implemented, because instead of influencing my subconscious mind with positive things and saying, oh, I'm fine, everything, I was saying, I'm schizophrenic, I'm losing my
Yeah.
mind, I'm going
Mhm.
crazy, I'm hearing things, this and the other. I'm literally driving myself insane.
Yeah.
And that's what I didn't realize, is the more you think about something, the more you let something control you, the more effort you put
Mhm.
into thinking about something, the more impact it's going to have over your life, the more control it's going to take. So that's definitely something that I agree with. I mean, that was probably the biggest struggle up to, I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know if you remember, but I mean, I've got kind of with Kevin, how he's burned. I've got the
Yeah.
same exact thing. I was burned when I was 3 years old. So I mean, I've
Wow.
always had that. But I mean, that I personally had it easier than Kevin, I believe, because I've always had it in my life. I didn't have to go through a switch.
Mhm.
It's always been a part for me. But that's kind of besides the point. I mean, I've learned that life is kind of
Mhm.
if you want to be sad, you're going to be sad. If
Yep.
you want to be happy and successful, then that's what's going to happen. It all just starts with a mindset change. And I completely agree with that. And that's 100% a huge thing. So uh, I guess my next question for you would be, this is kind of go off topic, is why the Porsche?
Well, for any guy who really gets into cars, you
Mhm.
know that Porsche is kind of like that. If you're a driver, at some point you have to own a Porsche.
Mm.
And when I bought the Lambo, I said, dude, if I ever get rid of this thing, I'm gonna get a Porsche. I've driven them, right? I have friends who have them. I've driven them on tracks, and overall, it's very difficult to beat the driving experience of a Porsche. So it
Mm.
was always in the back of my mind. And then a couple months ago, when I was like, I'm thinking about selling the Lambo, I started looking, and it made sense, right? I found some good deals. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do it. And literally from one week to the other, I sold the Lambo and I got the Porsche. It's such a fun car, man.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah. I mean,
track it. I'm gonna really just milk it for what it is and really like push it, which is what I
mhm,
really want to do with my cars, especially something like that.
yeah. I mean, for driving experience, I've heard that that even though they're a pain in the ass to own without warranty, is a McLaren. The McLarens,
Yeah.
their driving performance is beautiful, but owning them out of warranty is hell. But I mean, me personally, that's the car I want. I mean, I don't plan on owning it out of warranty. So I mean, would you ever look at getting a McLaren, or is that kind of out of reach?
I like the McLarens, dude. They're just not my style. You
Mm,
know, I considered selling the Lambo and getting like a 720S, the McLaren. I've driven the 570S, the 675 LT. They're great cars, man. They're not me, if that makes sense, right? I
yeah,
love them. I have friends who have them. I've driven them. They're just not my style. Same thing with
yeah,
the Ferrari. Like I love the Ferraris. There's maybe one or two Ferrari models that I like, but even then, I don't think I'd buy it just because overall they're just not for me. Versus a Lambo, everything about it I love. You know, from when I was a kid, immediately any any magazine that had the Lambos, I would rip the pages out and put them on the wall. And then any picture of like a Ferrari or something else, I would just like throw it away. Right? It was all about the Lambo.
yeah. For me, I was never really a fan of the Lambo design. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously growing up I was a fan, but then I mean it was everybody's cars like, oh yeah, I want a Lamborghini. Like, well, what the
yeah,
fuck, man? I can't want what everybody else wants. It's not
yeah.
special
Right,
anymore. But
right.
but I don't know if you've seen for the new the new McLaren that came out. It doesn't have a windshield at all. It's kind of insane, the engineering behind it. Basically, how it works is it has a huge air intake right here. It takes in the air and then shoots it upwards, and then that air acts as your windshield and redirects the wind going over, so it slipstreams over. It's such a crazy car. I mean, it's a car without a windshield, and it's supposedly as much wind as if like the windows were closed. So I mean, I don't know if you've seen that car, but that's a pretty sweet car coming out.
I haven't seen it, man, but that sounds really
Really?
interesting. And the way
Yeah.
the engineering is nowadays and how advanced they are, I'm not surprised to hear that, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, with cars, I mean, it's crazy, especially the the integration of electric.
Hmm.
Because I mean,
Hmm.
electric, you can't instant torque or instant. I guess you can't call it gas. Instant acceleration that you get because
Yeah,
there's no need for gear shifts. There's
yeah.
no turbo lag or anything. It's just straight go because I mean it's battery to power. But I mean it's crazy that even that's just a crazy integration. But I mean have you ever looked at possibly getting a Tesla or no Tesla for you?
Yeah, I'm not an electric fan personally. They're great.
Mhm.
The instant torque delivery is awesome and they're fast. They're super
Yeah.
quick. I just, I trip out. Like I'm in a Tesla and I don't hear anything. I'm like, is the car on? Did it shut off? Like I'm nervous, So, but they're
Yeah.
really cool. The technology is amazing. It's just,
Mhm.
I like, old school tuner cars. I like hearing
Yeah.
the motor. I like hearing the turbo. Like that's
Yeah.
just me. I'm real old school. I just like the motor and that kind of
Yeah.
raw feel when you're driving. Like I don't even turn on the radio in my cars. I just lower the windows, even when it's
Mhm.
raining, just so I can hear the engine.
Yeah, I guess that's definitely something you can hear from a super owner 100%.
For sure.
So
100%. Yeah.
so I mean, have you actually driven Teslas or have you just or have you had any experience driving in Teslas or no?
Yeah, the SUV, the P100D, I've driven that and I've been in it. I've been chauffeured around in a Model 3, and I think I've also been in the sedan, the P90 D, I believe. So there's been three or four Tesla experiences that I've had.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, the main reason why I'm kind of looking at a Tesla is not only how fast they are, the acceleration, but also how cool the kind of self-driving is. That
yeah,
part's insane to where I mean, it literally hands off the wheel, it drives itself. That's
yeah,
just crazy. I mean, it's kind of like getting a taste of the future in a sense.
yeah. It is, man. Like
Yeah.
the amount of technology in those cars and how much they've advanced, it's just incredible. Because
Mhm.
you really think about it, they're pretty much, I think, the ones that made other manufacturers really wake up and say, okay, maybe we won't go all electric, but we're going to start incorporating, like a lot of the new supercars are part motor, part electric,
Mhm.
so they're really innovators for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, what car are you looking at after the Porsche? What do you have your eyes on?
I'm just looking at picking up some classics, man. Like I want to pick
Mhm.
up all the old Skylines, like the R32, the
Okay.
34. I'm probably going to buy another R35. And that's pretty much it, dude. I'm pretty slim with my selection of cars that I like, and they happen to be like Japanese cars. I'm not, other than the
Mhm.
Lambo, I wasn't really an exotic fan. The Porsche I like, but I don't really see myself buying those hyper cars and all that stuff. They're great. I admire them, but I don't think I would drive them. So
Mm.
I drive my cars, man. I put miles on my cars.
Right.
I drive them hard. I don't buy a car to show off on YouTube or leave it in
Mhm.
my garage and say, "Oh, look what I have." Like I'm not about that. I think I
Yeah.
had the Lambo for 3 years, man, and I might have put it in 3 YouTube videos. So
Yeah.
I'm all about the experience and enjoying the car. And for that reason, I just like the old manual, like turbo tuner cars,
Yeah.
just because of the noises and how they ride. It's just really raw. Those 90s cars with no technology, no power steering, it's just
Mhm.
really cool.
Yeah, I definitely know what you mean with stick shift. My Honda Civic, it's a stick shift. That thing's pretty slow though, man. I mean, it's a good first car, but I mean, definitely driving stick shift. I mean, it's nice because you kind of have more control. You feel more connected to the car in a sense. I mean,
Yeah,
especially because you get to get those RPMs really high.
yeah,
You get to really just hear the motor. It's a great experience.
yeah,
I mean, I guess you do get a little bit of that with modern cars is they've got you can downshift with the pedals, and then I guess
yeah,
but it's not the same. I mean, you're holding onto a wheel and then you're just going like this to downshift. It's completely different from the whole
yeah,
motion and everything. It's a completely different beast.
yeah.
For sure, man. Well, hey, do you have anything else that you would like to talk about before we kind of wrap this thing up?
No, man, I think it's good. I will commend you, dude. How old are you again?
18.
18, man. Like it's hard to believe that you're only 18, man. You're very wise for your age, and the whole experience, the depersonalization you talked about. Uh, if you would have ended up speaking to somebody like me when that happened, it would have completely shifted your mind because what you described is actually very advanced. So, from a mental standpoint and a spiritual standpoint, you're a lot more evolved than the average person. And when you went the route of researching and thinking something was wrong with you, you're right. When you start thinking that something's there, anything that pops up you'll grab as a clue and say, oh yeah, I do have this or that. So
Mhm.
that's the power of the mind and why you have to be so precise with what you
Yeah,
put in it. But it's
exactly.
cool to hear that because you have a bright future ahead of you, man, because you're just a lot more, I hate to use the word because people say it, woke, right? You're a lot more evolved than a lot of people my age, but especially your age, man. So you definitely have a gift, I'll tell you that.
Hey, appreciate it. Yeah, I mean that definitely means a lot coming from you. I mean, I kind of look at you as a role model and as a mentor. I mean, you're the person who I'm trying to model myself after. So that definitely means a lot
Very
coming from
cool.
you, man.
Yeah,
All right,
thank
man.
you,
Well,
man.
hey, I really appreciate you doing this for me. And for everybody who doesn't know, I mean, if you're on my channel, you definitely know who this guy is. Bryan Casella, BC. His channel links will be in the description below. So yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this one.
Cool. All right, Eric, thanks for having me, bro.